NorthCap Masterclass, a series of talks where you get to listen to eminent thinkers, scholars, and leaders sharing their perspectives on what's going on in the world and what it means to you as future professionals. Over the past 25 years, the NorthCap University has been the preferred destination for talented students and faculty. Our graduates are well accepted all over the world in leading companies and by top universities abroad. For a singular reason, at NCU, we are firmly invested into the future. A glance at all the specializations we offer in engineering, management, and law powerfully illustrates this. From cybersecurity to artificial intelligence to digital marketing to latest movements in jurisprudence, we cover it all. The same intent drives our recent collaboration with Arizona State University, the first of its kind in India in coverage, breadth, and depth, all designed to bring the latest education to you, the student. And today we have a speaker who is an extremely rare combination of a scholar, a thinker, a politician, and a leader. When Dr. Swami speaks, everyone listens. In front of him, we are all students. While no introduction is necessary for someone as well known as Dr. Swami, the form requires that I do so. Dr. Subramanian Swamy is an economist, statistician, politician, and member of parliament in Rajya Sabha. Before joining politics, he was professor of mathematical economics at IIT Delhi and also taught at Harvard University. His previous roles include member of Planning Commission of India, erstwhile Niti Aayog, cabinet minister in the Chandra Shekhar government, chairman of the Commission on Labour Standards and International Trade under former Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao. He is a prolific commentator and author of several books on economics and foreign affairs of India dealing largely with China, Pakistan, and Israel. Dr. Swamy earned his doctorate in economics from Harvard University and master's in statistics from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. Today, Dr. Swamy will speak on challenges and opportunities for India's economy in post-COVID era. After he has finished speaking, you may write in your questions for him in Microsoft Teams chat, and I will ask them on your behalf. Dr. Swamy, welcome to the NorthCap University. The stage is yours, sir.
Thank you. I believe this program is for 1 hour, so I'll speak about 35 minutes, and then the others I'll leave for questions if that's, that format is acceptable, which is what I normally follow in classrooms. First of all, many thanks to NorthCap University, and from what I've heard and what I'm being told by various people, it's a really one of the modern universities that India needs, and its method of teaching is about as modern as possible. I'm glad to hear that you have some arrangement with Arizona State University. And I think the American system of education is now the most superior system, much better than, say, UK and Europe and or any other part of the world. So I think the students here are privileged, and so it will be my pleasure to address them. The topic is challenges and opportunities for India's economy in the post-COVID era. Now, let me say that challenges and opportunities have to be factored into an economic policy. You can't just say, I have this challenge, and it's all ad hoc. And unfortunately, much of our narratives in the media, through politicians and government announcements and finance ministry documents, I find them, all of them, to be ad hoc, in the sense they deal with one issue, another issue. And unfortunately for them, economy is a connected issue. That's why we make a distinction between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Microeconomics is what an individual does when he goes to a market or when he does a transaction, whereas macroeconomics is when the whole economy has different sectors, how they interact, or the input and the output has worked into a matrix. So it's a highly sophisticated mathematical subject, and therefore one must understand that the structure of economic policy is first to state your objectives, Then you state of these objectives, what are your priorities, which you'd like to do first, which you'd like to do second. And the third is the strategy you're going to adopt, economic strategy, to achieve these objectives in the order of the priorities. And finally, where are you going to mobilize the resources for it? These four are the pillars of economic policy. And any discussion on economic policy without specifying each of these four separately and their interactions is not worth being called economics. It's something which politicians regularly talk about. It's all unstructured. So I'll begin with this thing that the economic policy of the country has now to be reset. I've written a book which has turned out to be a bestseller by the Rupa publishers called Reset about a year ago. It's already sold out several times, and it's not a very big, bulky book. It's very sharply addressed, and therefore, if you ever get a chance, you can have a look at it, and where I've in detail described what the situation was during the British times, what the situation was in the early Nehru period of Soviet times, etc. So, and how we evolved, how our growth rates moved slowly up and had reached a very high level till this these last 10 years, where we have had bad economic policies, I must admit, because part of that is also when my party has been in power, and for the same reason, it's an unstructured policy. And consequently, today, when I talk about the challenges and opportunities, I will pin these things and tell you how to get out when the COVID finally gives way. So first, what are the challenges? I would say there are two broad challenges that faces the Indian faces India, and one is that since 2016, that is 2015-16 financial year, the GDP growth rate has been consistently coming down. So if anybody tells you that it's because of the corona are we having poor growth rates, of course, we're having poor growth rates, no doubt about it, but that's a very sharp fall, which I'll mention in a moment. But the fact is that there is what we got in the year 2004 to 14, 2015, and the 2015-16 was a growth rate which reached up to 8%, which is a very high growth rate. We ideally should be targeting 10%, and I'll explain why later. But the growth rate began after that coming down, 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 down. And the last quarter before this coronavirus pandemic gripped us, and that is the last quarter would mean January 1st of 2020 to March 31st, 2020. Our growth rate was just 3.1% in an annual basis, and that is as bad as it was in 1947. So therefore, the worst possible growth rate we achieved, and it consistently came down. This is all government statistics. You can see the annual economic survey of the finance ministry after the budget presentation, or you can go even to Google and say what has been the growth, deal with that question. So this you must have in your mind clearly, that we are not talking about the effects of the COVID alone. We are dealing with why is it and what was wrong with our economic policy for these last 7 years that we have been having a consistent fall. Of course, let me say, as far as the coronavirus pandemic period is concerned, the first year, which is 1st April 2020 to March 31st, 2021, the growth rate was minus 24%. And since then, there are claims, I'd like to see them in its finality, the data in its finality, but now they're saying that our growth rate has gone up by 20%. But that's not 20% growth rate. it's a recovery of 20%, which means you're still 4% behind. And unfortunately, the spin in the newspapers is terrible. Most of our newspaper men know nothing about economics, and they'll put out whatever is dished out. And of course, it's always the duty of the government to put the best face forward and make out the best case for themselves. It's our job as people knowledgeable of economics to tell like it is. So like it is, I'm telling you, we have performed miserably in this last 1.5 years of COVID. And we have got to go a long way before we recover the lost ground. And so I'll come to that when I will talk about opportunities, because the opportunities still exist. So these are the two-part challenges that we have, that our growth rate is not adequate. Let me tell you, in this country, if you want to dent poverty and unemployment and inflation, then you have to target growing and achieve that target of 10% per year at the very least. Is India capable? That's going to be my argument. It has been always capable. And we have come very close to 10%, especially after 1990, when I became minister, and with two portfolios, one of commerce and industry, and the other was law and justice. And I was the senior most minister, so my word literally, and Chandra Shekhar and I were colleagues, so it was not, a prime minister's position didn't awe me. So I have got most of the things through. I produced an economic plan, but we couldn't implement it in its full glory because the government fell very soon. And then Narasimha Rao came, and he gave me a minister rank position, but as a chairman of a commission dealing with international trade and the WTO. And that entitled me to be part of the cabinet too. So therefore, he, of course, the very first day told me, because I refused to join the party, so he couldn't make me a regular member of the cabinet as a minister. But he nevertheless ensured that my services was taken, and as a president of the Janata Party, I was a minister in Narasimha Rao's government with a minister rank position. And he first immediately took the blueprints I had submitted during Mr. Chandra Shekhar's time, and that is what was implemented very successfully and cleverly by Manmohan Singh as finance minister, and my former commerce secretary, Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, as finance secretary. So the four of us were people who regularly discussed with each other, much more me with Narasimha Rao and Narasimha Rao with his colleagues. And we implemented the reform program, abolishing capital controls, abolishing quotas, and so all in one blow. I mean, it's not any gradualism. And the growth rate shot up, which was running at that time at a very low level, all the way up to 8% within 5 years. Every year it increased. And we were now called part of the emerging global economic power, having attained the same level of economic growth as China. And it's the United States, India, and China were the three countries, the triangle of the world. All kinds of very optimistic projections were made. But what really afterwards happened is we did not design the next stage of the reforms to unemployment, inflation, poverty elimination, and so on. And why are these important? Not in terms of my bleeding heart, oh, how can I have poor people and all that? No. How removing poverty actually increases economic growth. That's what I'm. And we had a lot of crazy advisors from abroad. One of these weaknesses our politicians have is they bring people who are serving in the United States. They may be Indians, but they're serving there. And they bring them here and give them high positions, far more than they deserve. And then they mess it up. There's nobody to challenge it, and we are overawed. We have our inferiority complexes. So we had this case of Mr. Raghuram Rajan, who was not even an economist. He was in the finance field, which is a very small part of economics. And he came in as governor of Reserve Bank. Mr. Modi made him that. And he began raising the interest rates as soon as he came. Now, as a finance man, there's no doubt that if interest rates rise, then the money supply into the stock markets, the money supply into the financial sectors goes down. And once the money supply is down, then the inflation becomes under control. But in macroeconomics, the exact opposite happens. When you raise the interest rates, yes, you are definitely making it harder for people to borrow money. But then small and medium industries which have taken loans from the banks and they have to continue to take loans in the bank, the cost of capital goes up. And if the cost of capital goes up, then they fold up because they are already working at a margin, and they can't pay for those costs, and so they start winding up, closing down, which is what happened. A big collapse of the small and medium industry, and after the corona, it's been even bigger, and people became unemployed. And if they become unemployed, then their purchasing power goes down. So their buying capacity also goes down. So the demand factor puts all the shops and also in difficulty. And even middle class has this problem, because once the unemployment starts spreading, then they also start losing their jobs, or their pay is cut for employment. And therefore you found India, a country like India, having huge surplus of cars. And they were, literally in the showrooms. And that's why some companies have now folded up and started going back. A Ford company has just closed down and said, no, in India, there's nobody buying cars, so we are going away. So this demand effect. So what I'm saying is, please don't treat economics as some kind of chartered accountant's work of balancing accounts and so on, which is what our present finance ministry is doing. It is a macro thing. And what happens here affects somewhere else. How did macroeconomics come to be so important in economics? It is by only one reason, that there was a huge depression in the Western world in 1930. And how did this depression come? 3-4 years before the depression, the then United States president called his economists and said that, you see, elections are coming, and I find there's a lot of unemployment. Unacceptable level of unemployment. And therefore, how do I reduce it? So based on that time, that period of knowledge of economics, which vastly expanded afterwards, the economist advised him, like good chartered accountants, I think, that, you see, if wages are high, then employment will be low. That is, if the demand and supply, if the prices are high, then naturally demand will go down. If the prices are low, demand will go up. And then the supply will be accordingly, whether you have a surplus or not. So they said, you persuade the trade unions, labor unions, that for at least till the elections are over, they should accept a 10% cut in wages, so that companies finding the labor cheap will start employing more people. But what turned out to be is that after the president was able to successfully persuade the trade unions to accept a 10% cut, that unemployment increased, wages coming down, and employment also coming down. And it led to a depression. People are on the streets. The government had to put soup canteens so that people don't starve. All this started happening, and the president was aghast. He says, what has gone wrong? The economists also didn't know. At that time, an economist in Britain called John Maynard Keynes, he came up with this. He said, microeconomics doesn't apply in macro situations. And therefore, he said, if today you want unemployment to go and this depression to disappear, spend money. And they were all shocked. He said, where? He says, print notes. They said, print notes? Then that will be inflation. He said, so what? Let it be put in the hands of the people. They will go and buy. And that precisely what saved the economy. Then the World War II came. Therefore, at that time also they had to spend for weapons. That created demand. And soon America was a booming country and never looked back afterward for a long, long time. So I am saying today in India, what is the problem of why we have so much unemployment, and that unemployment has increased very substantially during this COVID period? It is because companies have been closing down. Companies have been cutting back. And the reason is that they were not able to pay the employment, the wages of employment. So therefore, what should the government do in such a case? Put money into the hands of the unemployed. It's like, oh, for example, these landless laborers are all walking. It was a pathetic sight. And when I was in a meeting where I was asked, I said, go with a truck with full of money, printed notes, and hand it to these people, and they will on the roadside will go and have a good lunch in one of these dhabas. At the moment, all the dhabas were closing down also because nobody was buying. So here is a very simple presentation. In economics, we call this as the input-output analysis. It's a highly sophisticated, matrix-based, advanced mathematics-based analysis. So today, if you want unemployment to go, there's only one way: increase demand, because the supply is not a problem. There's in fact excess supply, there's inventory, all this is piling up. So, and one of the ways is to print notes. The other way is to reduce taxes. But we have increased taxes. Taxes have increased, they've become more complicated. This GST is total madness. I was unfortunately the only person in Parliament who objected to GST. And I said that the Infosys is incapable of producing the software for it. You will find that this whole system will be collapsing. What was the system? Previously, all indirect taxes were collected by the state governments, and the direct taxes like income tax, corporate tax, etc., was collected by the center. Now, the GST was an idea which actually was not an original BJP idea. It was a Congress party idea, and the Congress party didn't implement it. And surprisingly, Narendra Modi as chief minister even rejected it in the meetings that he attended, saying, no, I'll never implement this. But I don't know who persuaded him, but he decided to go ahead and implement it as a great modernization of India. But it's all right, you can modernize if you have got the wherewithal for it. So what happened is that the GST meant constitutional amendments passed by Parliament to say that even indirect taxes will be collected by the center. But then what about if somebody produces a good in Maharashtra and sells it in Madhya Pradesh? Madhya Pradesh sales tax, they were getting revenue, but now they will not get the revenue. And Maharashtra ex-factory, they used to put taxes, that also they couldn't collect. So Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh will have to be compensated. So the government said, central government said, we will collect all the taxes, put it, and then having collected it, then we will parcel it out to every state, what is their due. But that's huge. 7 lakh crores were collected in the year 2017-18. put in the bank. And who did they give this to? Private banks, HDFC, ICICI. I don't know which madness that was. I said, at least have your state bank to do it. And I said the government itself has a capacity to produce software, because therefore income tax is totally computerized and they have mastered it there. But so therefore this also should be given to the government. Instead they gave it to Infosys, first they gave them 1,000 crores. They said it was not enough. After 1 year they couldn't produce this software. Then they gave them 4,000 more, and now they have still not produced it. And now they are threatening them and so on. But the question is, somebody has to produce this software. Otherwise, this money comes in, puts in the bank, you put it in the bank, and then you are to parcel it out. But you don't know how to parcel it out, because it is a huge amount that has to be distributed. 7 lakh crores of indirect taxes have to be distributed to or 35 states and union territories combined. So it has collapsed. So this is an example where cheap imitation of foreign countries. In fact, in no foreign country GST has worked. Everybody has dispensed it. And decentralization is always superior to centralization. Other things remaining the same. So this is the picture why we are in this situation. So what do we need to do? I certainly think that GST should be scrapped. We should go back to the old system. And you can't have foreign banks like HDFC. HDFC is 80%, 85% owned by foreigners. So is ICICI. Of course, that's now in major corruption. It's in a big state. But fortunately, the Prime Minister, 2 years after my pressing him almost every day, has nationalized the GSTN, as it was called, Goods and Service Tax Network. That was the body which was to prepare the software, is now being replaced by the government of India. So now coming to this question, having told you the challenges, I will get to you about how we can seize the opportunities that exist. First of all, as I say, my analysis is that the major economic problem for India today is demand, lack of demand. So how will you raise demand? Pay all the unemployed their salary. Has it been done anywhere? In America, everybody who was unemployed got a check from the American government, by check, deposited in their bank account, which in their income tax, I think it's called Internal Revenue Service, gave the bank account number, and the government directly put it in. All through this corona, money has gone for the bank, from the government of the United States to every unemployed person who was unemployed because of this. Anyway, they have unemployment insurance and all that, but that was for people who are already unemployed. Those who got unemployed in this corona, they all got checks. Those companies which folded up because money was no more available from the banks, they got money also by check. You can check it with any American you know, and ask them, is this true that you got money in your bank account through a check from the government? So they maintained their demand. We have allowed the demand to collapse. So the first thing is pay all unemployment people as a consequence of COVID their salary. How will you do it? Print notes. My God, printing notes. Wouldn't that be inflationary? It will be inflationary if it was a supply-constrained economy. Ours is not a supply-constrained economy presently. It's a demand-constrained economy. So printing money, putting in the hands of the people will mean that you are increasing demand, and that demand will raise the economy, and then the cycle will start, and then people will start increasing their supplies also, because now they're beginning to make profits. So this way, the first step. Second is abolish income tax completely. People are shocked when I say this. I've been saying this for years. They say, my God, How do we finance the government expenditure? First of all, income tax only gives you 2 or 3% of the government revenue. So don't give me this story about how will we finance. Print more notes if necessary. But the government must abolish income tax because it's a big bother for everybody. Rich are willing to pay income tax, but they are sick and tired of income tax inspectors. Middle class, some of them have their salaries cut at source, so they have much less problem, but most are scared of income tax people who come without any reason, give you notice and collect some money. It's become mighty corrupt thing. So, and secondly, agricultural income is not subject to income tax. Now, what is this? If I'm living in the city, I have to pay income tax. But if I'm making money growing crops, I have no income tax. And furthermore, the people who are below the income tax cutoff, they don't pay income tax. And that's a huge number. It's not only poor people who, but even people who are getting a decent amount of salaries. And then the rich people, they've got chartered accountants. So expenses, expenditures, this, that, they get all these tax exemptions. In the end, they pay very little. So it's this middle class which is getting the squeeze of the so abolish it. Tomorrow, our middle class will not go and spend that money. They will put it in stocks and shares, at least in fixed deposits. So raise the fixed deposit interest rate from the present 6% to 9%. And also at the same time, the lower the interest to be paid for taking a loan. You know how much, what is the interest rate for taking a loan in the United States? 2%. But in India, not less than 12%. The prime lending rate is 12%. So, and then of course, all the hassle, this thing, paperwork, all this was tremendous. So I think in the end, these additional costs all added up, it will probably turn out to be 16, 17% you pay. Now, why would anybody be encouraged? So they take it in black money, they do, all kinds of illegalities are going on because of that. So lower the loan rate to 9%. I'm not saying lower it to the American rate, but by the way, there are a lot of racketeers who take a loan in an American bank, with that money come to India and give a loan here, and without doing any work, pay 2% there and get here 16%. I mean, without doing any work and without having any money in their pocket, they can do this work. I mean, that is, it's not out of their bank account. They're taking a loan from American bank and lending it in India through these participatory notes and all these rackets that we have created. So therefore, first and foremost, for cleaning up our society, abolish income tax. And how much do you lose? Well, nowadays it's about 8-9 lakh crores, and that's nothing. And compared to the relief you will get, the boost you will get in investments, the boost you will get from taxes, or indirect taxes, all this when the economic machine starts moving. So then create a large amount of public works. Nitin Gadkari is a master in that, but he has no money. I mean, he has to fight every day for it. Build 8-lane highways from Delhi to Madras, all going at 70 miles an hour, or something like 120, 130 kilometers an hour. Smooth roads. We can build the best roads in the world. Because of corruption, we get potholes. Otherwise, we build the best roads for Malaysia, best roads for Nigeria, best roads for Iraq. Only we can't produce roads for India because there's corruption in the tender that goes out. So therefore, you build roads and supervise it like Nitin Gadkari has done, and build a network of roads so that people can travel fast from north to south, east to west. you will see what a huge amount of employment you will generate. Not only you generate employment, you will open dabas on the way, and then small cities will start emerging on the way because there is a road which connects to the major metropolitan cities. So this is called public works. This is what the United States did. People go and admire all the highways and turnpikes that the Americans have produced. All this was produced during the Depression period in America and World War II period. And of course, in Germany also, Hitler did it, called Autobahns. But the fact is that these are the ways to generate employment amongst the poorer section, who will then go and buy goods, and therefore all kinds of shops will come up. People will, the middle class, the lower middle class sellers of in shopkeepers, they'll all become well-to-do. So this is another thing that this is the demand side. Then there is something called the supply side. I would not ignore that, because if they only push demand, then you're going to have problem in the long run. Start offering discounts, excise tax. Out of 4,274 excise commodities taxed, 21 give you 92% of the revenue. So why waste money collecting the others? So remove excise tax from all but 22, 23 commodities. You'll see corruption will go down very in a major way, and all kinds of black money generation will also go. Of course, I have already said the GST should be scrapped, and then say to the companies that if your employers get free schooling, you build schools for them, or free transport, you bring them from their houses to the factory, then these expenses will be tax deductible from your corporate tax. And you will see that much of the work that government needs to do can be done by companies themselves. So you tell the companies, instead of paying high taxes, you build these, and all the expenses will be exempt. And finally, second last point I want to make, or third last point. You see, we need cheap imports, because we need imports to generate our modernity. And this rate of 70 rupees, 75 rupees per dollar is totally indefensible. Totally indefensible. It only helps the rich. It only helps those who take their black money abroad through the Hawala route, and then through the participatory notes from Indian dominated country in Mauritius, and come through participatory notes into India, go to the stock market, which is artificially boosted up. All our stock market rates are all rigged, and then they make the money, then cash it, and then Chidambaram created an instrument called participatory notes, which is a total fraud on the nation. You use that participatory notes where you don't have to produce any proof where you got the money from. Abroad, you go take a sack of dollars and give it to a Morgan Stanley or one of those banks, and they'll give you a piece of paper which is called participatory notes. You bring it to India, give it to the Reserve Bank, they'll give you another chit, and go to the stock market and invest it. No questions asked. No taxes paid. Especially from Mauritius, there's no taxes at all. Zero tax. And then you make a killing and go. That's why the stock market keeps going up and down like this. So for those people, 70 rupees, 75 rupees per dollar is very necessary. I would say for the present, we should not have more than 45 rupees per dollar. And over the years, if you look at the actual cost of our products compared to other American products, which is called the purchasing power parity, it will be probably 10 rupees a dollar. But we can't come down immediately to that, but that should be our final goal. And then Prime Minister doesn't have to worry about a $5 trillion economy, because just by this change in the currency rate, you'll get $5 trillion without doing any work. So this is the thing. Then there are $2 trillion in foreign banks illegally. United Nations has said that that you declare all Indian accounts abroad in the following 70 countries which do illegal banking as nationalized, and we'll collect it and give it to you. Has anybody done it so far? Yes. Egypt did it for Mubarak's accounts. They got the money back. Gaddafi, Libya did it for Gaddafi's illegal accounts. They got the money back. Philippines for that fellow, whatever his name was, he and his wife, they had a huge amount of money. They got it all back. You can get it back. Top lawyers like Narasimha have written notes and given to the government how it can be done. I have myself given it, that you can get all this money back, $2 trillion, just by telling the United Nations, as per their resolution passed in 2005, that we are hereby nationalizing all Indians' foreign bank accounts in these following 70 countries which do illegal banking, and therefore it becomes Indian money. And if anyone says, no, I have been unfairly taken, I earned this money and I put it with the permission of the Reserve Bank, well, make an application, it will be returned to you. But those who can't, you lost your money. So you can get $2 trillion this way. And that will mean a big thing. Let me also conclude by saying that economic growth cannot be accelerated by more investment in the economy, because that will lead to what is called the law of diminishing returns. What you have to do is to bring in new innovations, like the British brought locomotives and steel, Bessemer blast furnace for steel. That created industrial revolution. The Americans brought in wireless, then they brought in jet engines, and finally the internet. That's why the Americans are growing. They don't move along the curve. They go from curve to curve. I mean, they go higher and higher. So therefore, we need to do certain things, like instead of crude oil from abroad to produce petrol, we should use hydrogen fuel cells for automobiles. That's a technology which we can easily do. We should take all the thorium deposits and convert that into an atomic energy fuel. You will get so much electricity, you can give it free. We should desalinate seawater like the Israelis have done, and the Saudi Arabians have copied from the Israelis. And you will get no shortage of water supply. Instead of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka fighting for this river, this Kaveri river, you will find that they will have so much water, they won't know what to do. They'll get drowned in it if they don't use it. So desalination of seawater. There are so many solar energy. Solar energy is something which is, most efficient, most cheap, but we have not followed it up. We are all the time imitating some foreign country and listening to stupid advisors who come from abroad. And this is the reason why we have not done. So I think this is called innovation. Innovation is the key to economic growth, fast economic growth. And innovation requires brains. Indians have got plenty of brains. Motivate them. And like we have shown what we can do in software, but that is not because of us, but because of the demand abroad. And therefore, Indians should be given this opportunity they should be given high positions in companies and government and so on, and given free hand to produce innovations. That way, India can then grow fast, 10 to 12% per year. If we grow at 10 to 12% per year for 10 years, then you will overtake China. If you grow for another 5 years, then you are equal to America. And with this vast young supply of population, average age of an Indian is only 26 years. Average age of a Chinese is 35 because of this one child per family craze that they had. Average of Americans is 37, and that's because they brought in all these Mexicans and all that. That's why it's a little lower there. Average age of Europeans is 46. Average age of Japanese, which went in for a heavy family planning measures after World War II, is 50. We are the young population. They're all aging population. Aging population is always dangerous. We need young people, innovative minds, fresh knowledge, and so on. And India is gifted with that. We have land which is enormous. We have as much arable land as China, even though China is 3 times the size of India, but most of it is barren. Whether it's Xinjiang or whether it's Tibet or whether. But India is, 120 million hectares of fertile land, but we hardly grow more than 1 crop. We can grow 3 crops a year. America grows 3 crops. We cannot grow 3 crops. They grow 2 crops because one is all gone in snow. China also, part of it goes in snow. Europe also same. But we can do agriculture 12 months of the year, so 3 crops, but not more than 25% of our land have more than 1 crop. It's a total waste, and with all this rain and monsoon and sun, India is going to be a great exporting country. Already we are the cheapest producers of agricultural products, but we don't produce enough, and we don't know how to export and how to fight to get access, market access for exports. So, in summary, taken longer than I thought, I would say India is a land of potential, but India doesn't have imagination. India doesn't think freely. India doesn't have self-confidence, and that is the reason why it is. And if you get that and follow the right policies, balance demand, aggregate demand, national demand, told you, tomorrow if I lower wages, I will only increase unemployment because factories will close down. So everything is interconnected. And recognizing macroeconomics as a separate field, and we act according to that. Narasimha Rao's period, we proved that if you apply your mind correctly, you can grow from what is called the Hindu rate to growth of 3.5% to 8% in 5 years. I am telling you, you can grow it to 12% per year. And if you do that for 10 years, you are world power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This is wonderful, and like all of your lectures, we give many answers and raise some questions. So the chat box is open to you, students, and you can type out your questions in chat, and I'll take them on your behalf. But let me lead off with a couple of questions from my side, sir. What is your view on creating a long-term tax-free infrastructure bond, such as 20-25-year-old duration bonds, where there will be no tax and will be used for infrastructure, connecting to your point on spend money in infrastructure?
You can spend it anyway. Why should you, tie this up? Because anything that requires a regulation means corruption. Just tell people, do what you want with your money. And we are very sensible people, and particularly our middle class. They will not splurge. Today, because of black money, people are splurging money. But if you are able to earn, keep it, and convert it to wealth, our people will not waste the money. So don't make any regulation. You just simply say, I'm abolishing income tax. Tomorrow people will be dancing on the streets. Tell all the wageless, unemployed people will give you wages till you find a job. And that way, that is the way to do it. And I don't think that all this bonds and so on, that cashable things later on, no, I'm not in favor.
Okay. So one more question from my side. Recently, we heard of the tiff between Government of India and Twitter. So when it comes to big technology firms, What are your views on framing the IT rules on one hand and data protection, coming out with a data protection bill on the other? Because somewhere they all collide with big tech.
Well, it's a thin line. We have a big problem of data stealing by China. They are into it in our country. They are using cyber warfare in a very technical sense. They even showed off by closing down our electricity in Bombay and said, "This is a warning. Don't misbehave with us. We'll close it down the whole of India." So I think yes, we need a great deal. And now Bitcoin comes, we are in real trouble. So we need, yes, we need a very strong army of IT professionals who ensure data protection, but don't do it so much that you start interfering with the freedom of expression. Yes, Twitter is a foreign thing, but then why is it that you're not able to build an Indian alternative to Twitter? There are people who have tried, but there's no support from government, there's no support from the people, and Twitter is therefore dominated by people who are hostile to India, and they can do it. But their Twitter also has rules. And I use Twitter very regularly, and I have generally found I have not found any of my thing being taken off because it was not to the liking of Twitter.
I'm collecting a few questions which are common, so I'll ask a common question across Krishna and others. Given that we live in very unpredictable times, given everything is happening, what careers should we think of over the next 10-15 years? How should we shape ourselves?
Well, you see, you must have your own inclinations, and those days are gone when you went to IAS because everybody said that's the only place you can get a steady job, or ICS in the British Times. What the country needs, I can tell you, and where you fit in, you decide. Because risk-taking is an art. Indians hate risk. They want to avoid it. They want everything written, given. That's why most people become, people don't want to become Bill Gates. They want to become some official in a company, you see, because that's where you get the money. Go and ask IIM graduates, what are you going to do when you go up? Are you going to set up a company? No. We will get a job as soon as we come out, and the companies will take us, become glorified babus. So I would say the first thing to change is the mindset of the Indians. Don't be afraid of risk. In life, you can't really make progress unless you take risk, and you can't take risk unless you are ready for some setbacks. Setbacks come, but if you are intelligently using your risks after due consultation with knowledgeable people, risk will take you very far. So that's all I'll say. Look at your inclination. If you are risk averse, then please be a babu. Continue. Join IAS, IPS, join companies as to sit on a desk. Don't try to find out what India needs and then work for innovation, because these are risky alternatives.
Aditya, question from Aditya. Sir, what are your views about the farm laws?
The farm laws are, according to me, very good, and I welcome them. But if somebody doesn't want it, some state doesn't want it, then they should have an option not to implement it. And that can be put into the rules. So BJP governments are there, make them implement these farm laws and show what wonderful results have come because of the farm laws. Automatically, all the other governments which have opposing it, there are very few, maybe 3 or so, they will all will have to fall in line. Today, there's been so much propaganda, and the government has decided to deal with this themselves by obstinacy. That won't do. You see, the government should say, all right, you don't like it. We did it. After all, remember, agriculture is in the constitution a purely state subject. The BJP, our government has come by a trick, which is through the excise tax, on Essential Commodities Act. They come through saying that this has not got to do with managing agriculture, but it has got to do with buying and selling, which comes under essential commodities and which is a national act. So they have come through this trick. I'm saying don't try to be smart with your people. Just tell them you don't want this. Let your chief minister, unless he signs an agreement with the central government, this will not be implemented in your state. And as far as those states which are ready to implement, which are the BJP states, and there are other states also, I know, they will implement it and then show what a difference it has made to agriculture. Basically, what you are doing is you're giving many mandis instead of one mandi. You see, you're giving many opportunities for buyers instead of only well-known government buyers. You see. So therefore, I welcome the reform, but I'm saying don't force its implementation. Let every chief minister say, I want it, and implement it. Or if he doesn't want it, continue with the old and learn the hard way.
Thank you. The issue of corruption seems to be on the minds of many students. Arishta has asked the question. Tanveer has asked the question.
Yeah.
What should we do as students and maybe professionals later to tackle this issue of corruption?
Well, there's a long-term way and there's a short-term way. The short-term way is my way. Don't ever yield to corruption. Somebody says, you pay me this, then only I'll do it. Go and report him to the police. Well, that means you need to know law the way I know law, so that nobody puts on you some false cases. Okay, no, if anybody, I've had top lawyers being recruited to put cases on me like Jetmalani and all. I defeated all of them in court. And after that, nobody wants to file a case against me. Or they'll file a case of defamation. All that is stopped because, so I would tell all our young people, you want to be enterprising, before you go into the employment market or you're trying your projects, please learn law. And I would say this to both girls and boys, because now girls and boys are in fact equal. They are doing, in fact, girls are doing better in competitive exams than boys. And even in our Hindu tradition, education is with Saraswati, you see. Finance is with Lakshmi, and defense is with Durga. Can you think of any male god getting in a portfolio? Only Narad Muni, who got information broadcasting. You see, so women have demonstrated. You go to ISRO, you see so many women. So men and women both, I say to you, do learn law, because in a modern democracy, law is very important. And it's an armory for you. After that, you go into risky ventures.
Sir, you have a counter from Abhishek, one of our students. He says, my question is that if we give wages to all the unemployed people, then they will never think of getting employed. What is your view?
I think the Indians have a lot of self-respect. Nobody is wanting to be on permanent doles. Beggars, there are only few, but that's because they don't get anything else to do. I don't accept this view. Fire people up, fire their imagination, teach in your college and school, stand up and do this for Bharat Mata, do something new, be like C.V. Raman or our famous mathematicians who have made great names abroad. Chandra Shekhar was a professor in Chicago and got the Nobel Prize, that kind of thing. Motivate people. And if you motivate people, kisi tarike se, by any means, you get a comfortable life. By cheating, then everybody will cheat. If cheating becomes so easy, then everybody will cheat. So make it very hard on cheating. make it very, and then look down on people who live on doles forever. But at the moment, the country is in a crisis, and this is not the fault of these people. They were working, and so you have to make them live a decent life till you are able to generate the economy to get them jobs.
I just want to be mindful of your time, sir. It is 2 minutes past 11. Are you
Yes.
Are you open to take a couple of questions more? Or?
Yes, I exceeded by 10 minutes my target of speaking, so you can take 10 minutes more.
Okay, thank you very much. Kunal has a question. What exactly is your take on global minimum corporate tax idea proposed by America?
I don't like taxes, so don't ask me for new taxes. Why should I bother about such taxes? No, I'm not in favor of any new tax. I'm in favor of reducing, and making it very simple. Even if you want to put a tax, no gradation, just one flat tax.
Nishant is asking, how can we become the biggest exporters like we used to be before British came here?
Yeah, before the British came here. That's right. The world over, people used to come here running to buy from us.
Right.
Well, obviously, you see, first of all, please let it be known that Indians don't cheat. So the quality should be top. 2, don't overcharge. 3, keep commitments. Indians have a notorious reputation of saying my mother is not well, my grandmother is not well, some excuse, giving excuse for delay. If you give a commitment for a time, you meet it, or go and say, frankly, this is the reason I couldn't do it, but I am willing to take a cut in the remuneration I get for selling a product. So the Americans, for example, go entirely by cost benefit. If they are not able to deliver something, they'll tell you, we can't deliver it, but we are willing to compensate you for it. Tell us what will. So that kind of thing, you will start exporting. We are got the cheapest labor in the world. The most skilled laborers are the cheapest. We are a democratic country. You know how China grew. They took semi-processed goods from East Asia, added value to it, and exported to the West. So they were in deficit with the East Asians and in huge surplus with the West. For example, Lenovo. Lenovo is not made in China. It's made in Taiwan. But only the circuits and all come, and then they put the keyboard on it. They put the glass and the case, and say Lenovo made in China. So therefore, the India can do all this. India is sitting on the edge of an ocean, and where China has to come through Malacca Strait. India and Indonesia get together, and China will not be able to cross that Malacca Strait. So therefore, I would say it's not a question of what you want to produce. It's a question, produce it well, be punctual, keep your commitments, and your word should be as good as your bond. That kind of a character you develop, you will see the whole world will be with you.
Krishna is asking, what is your view on cryptocurrency?
Well, it's inevitable, but you better have a good regulatory system for it. It's a long run unstoppable, but we got to somehow manage it. It's like people being frightened when the gold standard was removed. People said, "Whoa, how will my rupee be compensated in case somebody doesn't pay?" So, but now nobody even wants to think of gold standard. So the same way, there is a lot of insecurities in it, and we need to have a good regulatory system.
Abhilash Shah from our law school is worried about fighting fake news? How do we think we can fight the fake news?
By replying to it. I mean, where can the fake news come? If you're a prominent person, you get fake news all the time. But you reply, and if you're a prominent public person, you have followers, they can hammer you. I have a lot of people, including people in my own party and government, who put out all kinds of nasty tweets against me. But I also have a huge army in an organization which I've called, which is Virat Hindustan Sangam. They bash them up and then they all just fade away. So as long as they don't become vulgar, in which case the Twitter itself, for example, or Facebook, they will themselves take action. But when it comes to criticism, false criticism, lies, those are things which you must have either the capacity to reply yourself, or you must have an army of supporters who will reply for you.
Much more has been made about this automation and jobless growth, and we see more economy producing more Zomato delivery boys and the jobs growth there, but not enough high wage jobs. Is there any way out of the shrinking of middle class, if that's the term people use?
Well, you see, supposing you have computers, doesn't mean the Gumasta disappears, therefore everybody's unemployed. Who's going to repair the computers? Who's going to produce the software for the computers? So, I mean, a series of intermediate industries start growing up. I don't think we should worry about that. Yeah, capital-intensive technology. Well, if there is an alternative, even capital-intensive technology is only capital-intensive in final stage. But along the way, in producing the equipment for that, you are generating. So you have to have what is called in economics as an input-output analysis matrix, which will tell you if you lose employment here, whether you're gaining employment somewhere else. And that should be publicized through market information. There was a time when I was a student, people were crazy about becoming IAS and IFS. Today, that is not so. Today, what we have is people wanting to become engineers, who want to, even engineers have now given up, who want to be computer scientists, want to go abroad. So things change. And I think you should use your development of your mind is the most important thing. Do your studies well, develop your mind, think originally. You will never have any problem about jobs.
We are at the 10-minute mark, 11:10.
Yes.
So one last question, sir, from Shaurya. Last question.
Yes.
What hardships do you have to deal with as a member of parliament?
What do I have to deal with as a member?
What difficulties do you have to deal with as a member of parliament?
Well, first of all, people come, if you are effective, then people come from all over the country asking you even to settle divorce matters, you see. I mean, you get overloaded. Second, as an election, my performance is one factor only. Other factors, my caste, my language, a variety of things which I have no control over. So third thing is that if you become popular, then you have your peers putting you down and trying to make you ineffective. Denying you your due. Merit is in politics. Merit doesn't count. Merit is a gift to the public of India. But in order to be in a position to use your merit, either you have to be a terrific fighter, which is not a short-term. It doesn't give you results in the short term. It gives you in the long run. I've been 6 times member of parliament, and I've been twice a minister without being a sycophant of anybody. And but it's a long-term thing. I mean, I've been in politics now for more than 50 years. So therefore, that kind of patience is necessary. But you also get told a lot of lies are spread about you, falsehoods are spread about you, hatred is spread about you, twisting your statements take place all the time, and then you have to rectify that. So there are little things, but if you enjoy that, which I do, then I don't see any difficulty in being a politician.
Thank you very much, sir. And we have had a magnificent 1 hour with you. I'm sure I speak the common sentiment here that we enjoyed you having with us, and just listening to you was a wonderful lecture. We hope to receive you in the university physically when this shadow of COVID lifts.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, on behalf
Yes.
of the university, and God bless.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.